I just want to thank everyone for jumping on today. This is our second Build Your Career Forum, our first one virtually. So new to everyone here, but I'm sure none of us are new to Zoom. I think we're all doing lots of that lately. So today, our basic reasoning behind having this is to give you guys as students an opportunity to talk to industry professionals in different construction-based fields, hear what they do, how they've gotten to where they are, and a little bit about what they do every day. So today we have our inspectors on here who I work with a lot, great guys, happy to have them on, and just kind of ask questions. Before I turn it over to our moderator, Kelsey, I just want to let everyone know that one thing that helps us when we're speaking, and I've seen a couple of people come on and off with their cameras, but if you're presentable and I don't care if you're in your PJs or you have a baseball hat on, we don't care. But if you want to turn your camera on, then we can see who we're talking to. That helps us just add for the conversation. So we'd love to see your faces. Second thing is I run the Quad City Builders and Remodelers Association. So if there's any time while you're in high school or after high school and you're trying to connect to an industry professional out there or have a question about someone in the field or a business in the field, or just you're not really sure what to do next, but you know you want to be in the trades, you can reach out to our office. You can find me. And we can help direct you in a direction to get you started. I know that's part of, that's tough to figure out kind of what you want to do and who do you call first. So I'd be happy to help you with that. These videos are all recorded. Our information is on there. Once again, with the Quad City Builders and Remodelers, you can look me up. But that hopefully will give you some peace of mind if you're not sure where to start. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator for the session, Kelsey King. And Kelsey, I'll let you kind of take it from here.
Thanks so much, Julie.
You're welcome.
So I'm Kelsey. I serve as the Admissions and Community Outreach Coordinator for Eastern Iowa Community Colleges, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. So we have Ray and Joe who have taken time out of their busy schedules to be here with us today. So thank you both for joining us. For the students, we just ask that you be respectful. If you have any questions, be active listeners. So if you do have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat and we will get to those at the appropriate time. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce both Ray and Joe. So Ray's career started in a high school constructions trades class. Ray is the building official for the city of Eldrdige and a master code professional. He is the current president of the Illinois-Iowa Building Officials Association. He has over 25 years helping contractors and homeowners work through their construction issues. He's provided technical training to other building safety professionals on a variety of topics, including how to be a good inspector. And then also joining us is Joe. And Joe has been the building official for the city of Moline since 2018. Before that, Joe was building and electrical inspector for the city of East Moline for 7.5 years. He's a graduate from Hamilton Tech College with an associate's degree in occupational drafting. So with that, I will turn it over to both Ray and Joe to talk about their careers.
Okay. Joe, I'll go ahead and start. I was asked to give a 3 to 5 minute bio. So when I was in high school, 11th and 12th grade, I didn't know what a building official was. In fact, I didn't go to college, and my counselor in high school told me that I was not college material. Now I make about $37 an hour doing a job that I didn't know existed at that time. So I have to say that that counselor was correct. I was not college material. How I went from being in 11th and 12th grade to being a building official without going to college, without having that knowledge in high school of how to get here, is one of the reasons why I think planning your whole career ahead of time might not be the best way to go. If you're going to go to college, college is expensive. You need a plan. If you're not sure what you want to be, I think that's okay. You're going to find your niche, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I found mine.
Thanks, Ray. My name is Joe Kuhlenbeck. I am the building official for the city of Moline. Career path was very similar to Ray's. I did go to college after high school. I was enrolled in community college, Muscatine Community College down just a little bit further south of here. The plan was to get an associate's degree, continue on to a 4-year education, become an architect engineer, something along those lines. And throughout my high school career, I had a family in construction, so I had lots of opportunities to work. Started to travel and work a little bit more during the summers, during those years in college, and really just fell in love with the trades. I fell in love with being hands-on, being outside, being in the field. And instead of continuing on to the 4-year education, I got an associate's degree in drafting, which is partial engineering, but I would have worked for and with engineers as opposed to being an engineer. And I just kind of used that in my own career to help me build projects I wanted to work on, build projects that customers wanted me to work on, and worked in the trade in many different aspects. Found myself with an opportunity to work for the city government as an inspector, and jumped on. I've been doing that for almost 10 years now. So it's been a very rewarding transition. We get to do lots of different things, work with lots of different people, lots of different trades. We don't have to hone in on one skill specifically. So I found that very rewarding, and we can dive into that a little bit further as we get into this. Thank you.
Great, thank you both for that introduction. So the next slide here is going to tell us a little bit more about what building and home inspectors do. So would you please elaborate a little bit more on that?
Real quick, before we do that, could we switch and go on to the video next? And then they're going to go in more in depth. So.
Sorry, can you repeat that? My son's having a meltdown.
Oh, sorry. Jen, can you turn on the video? There you go.
I don't have audio.
Neither do I.
Can you all hear it?
No, we can't hear it. We may have to.
All right, here we go.
We all depend on the built environment, buildings,
Can you hear it now?
homes, and even sidewalks
Barely.
and streets to be safe and stable. Construction and building inspectors ensure that these and many other structures meet building codes, zoning regulations, and requirements spelled out in building contracts. There are many types of inspectors, from general building and home inspectors to construction and mechanical inspectors, who examine everything from electrical systems, elevators, and HVAC systems to bridges, sewer systems, and even paint coatings. Typically, inspectors perform an initial check during the first phase of construction and follow-up inspections throughout a construction project. At project completion, they make a final inspection and write up their findings in a report. These workers spend most of their time inspecting work sites, but also work in field offices to review blueprints and schedule inspections. They may have to climb ladders or crawl in tight spaces to complete their inspections. Most inspectors work for local government. Many also work in architecture or engineering firms. Although full-time regular business hours are typical, additional hours may be needed during heavy construction seasons or to respond to job site accidents. Inspectors typically learn on the job, but most employers require a high school education and extensive knowledge of construction trades. Many states require a license or certification.
Okay, Kelsey, if you want to go ahead, I think that Jen's a little bit busy.
Okay. So this slide here, then I'm just going back to this, is going to just give the definition of what building and home inspectors do. So Ray and Joe, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on what the video said?
Sure. At any given time, we're dealing with about 8,000 pages of construction law. It covers everything from the materials that you can use, UL listings for materials. It just covers every aspect of construction. And we have to work with people that are doing the work, designers, and basically help them understand what the law says, because we're basically their law consultant. So whatever the construction codes require, if they don't know it, they ask us. And we need to be able to answer those questions, because their goal is to get the job done right the first time, so that they don't have to spend money redoing things that they didn't know. Joe, am I missing that point? What do you think?
Oh, that's a very big overall 30,000 foot elevation view of what we do for sure. We deal with everybody throughout the construction process, whether it's the contractor, the design professional, the homeowner, the project managers, and every trade in between. So the inspections department really has to be well versed and have lots of different types of backgrounds in order to communicate and help and assist with all the aspects of the construction project. Building departments, we typically work with the vertical construction in the communities, the buildings and places that we enter and occupy and use. That video also explains some of the inspectors who might look at and work with road construction crews, which we have here in the city. I work next with and along with our inspectors who make sure that the roads are built right and to the plans and to the specs and things like that. So there's all different kinds of construction opportunities out there, and inspectors are important on that, because we do oftentimes work as a bridge between the contractor and the designer to make sure that the project is built as it's intended to be built. If we miss any of those portions where things can go wrong, things might not last as long, we might have inferior products, and the end user ultimately is affected. So we do work with a lot of different people throughout. Ray, what are some of the unique building situations you've been in Eldridge since you've been up there?
I'm going to go back in my career a little farther to answer that. I've done work in nuclear facilities, done work on a project where they made battery acid. Recently, we finished a 60,000 square foot building where they manufacture guns. I've been involved in a lot of things that were very much outside of my area of expertise. But using the construction codes, you can typically find what you need if you have the background to do it. I started my background in the construction trades and sort of took a roundabout way to get here. But having this knowledge has allowed me to just provide a great lifestyle for my family. My wife and I vacation, we mountain bike. Getting involved in construction and not going to college was absolutely the best that I could have hoped for. It's worked out fantastic for me. And anybody who wants to go this path, if you're sitting there in high school right now wondering how to get here, well, step one, start asking everybody you know if they can get you a job in construction. And your parents' friends, all of that, I think that's important. Once you get to this point, you spend a lot of your days going over plan reviews, rolls of paper this big. I've got a set of plans I'm working on now for a YMCA. It's 97 pages, and each page is 3 feet tall and 4 feet wide. And it's awesome. Joe, how about you?
Yeah, lots of different opportunities. One of the things I think I like about working in municipal government and working on so many different projects, because we don't have to start at a project and work until it's finished. Oftentimes 6 months, a year, 2 years. You know, we're not at the same location. We get to visit all the locations going on within the community often. The people that we get to meet and the kind of the tours we, so to speak, get. I've been in the Tax Slayer Center, up in the mezzanine where all the lighting goes on. They redid the lighting and spotlights up there, and you know, it was part of our job to go up there and make sure that the everything was done properly and safety. Although every one of those lights has 2 chains attached to it somewhere in case it falls. It's got 2 ways of backing up so it doesn't come down onto the crowd below. And we inspected those, so we got the bird's eye view of that facility, because that was our job. You know, we had to go up there and do it. Working with, I'm going to stay at Tax Slayer Center, working with them for backup generator purposes, because once they build their ice rink for the hockey season in the wintertime, that they invest tens of thousands of dollars just to get it ready once. And they also have other events throughout the year. Well, when they bring in the monster trucks, they put dirt over top of that ice and they build their ramps, and they utilize that same arena without just tearing everything down. Because of these complicated construction and concepts that they do, we still need to ensure that everybody's safe, the facilities are going to function as expected, and in case of an emergency or power failure, the facility, the owners aren't out money. They're able to save their money and do it safely. You know, we deal with safety is our number one concern within a building system. We want to make sure that the building is safe just in general, but we also want to make sure that in the case of an emergency, everybody who's in there is able to get out of that building and get to safety. And every trade has to cross those lines, and it's difficult when an electrician or a plumber does something because it fits their purpose, but it may affect the way the building functions totally. And that's where that's where our challenges really arise. And with interesting projects like your battery acid manufacturing and the Tax Slayer Center, we got tens of thousands of people in there. Those are exciting projects that we get to work hand in hand with those types of people. That's one of the things I really like about it. Lots of cool things like that. But that's the building aspect. We get to go to lots of different projects in a week, really, where we're not stuck on one from January to December of the same year. So
I wanted to just interject real quick back to something Ray said. If you're interested in this profession and you don't know anyone in the construction industry or don't have any family, our office can help with that. One thing we can do is get some information about you and maybe connect you to someone in the field that is hiring, like during the summer, on the weekends, especially if you're in high school. We've had this conversation come up with some of our earlier sessions, but that's something we can do. It's just getting your foot in the door really is the hard part. So you're welcome to call me and we can try to work and get something started for you. Because like Ray and Joe both said, it's just getting your foot in the door, getting started, and then working your way up to those positions. So that's it.
I'll touch on that a little bit. I was very fortunate to have a family in the construction industry. The minute I had a driver's license, my uncle was asking me to come down and help him pour concrete on a fence project he had. I mean, I didn't have it for a day, but even with that foot in the door, the hardest part for me when I was young, in high school and out of high school, was just having the confidence to go onto a construction site and go to work. We all have the perception of what a construction site is. We've got a bunch of guys, they're rough, they're bearded, they got they're dirty, and that's true. But they're a good group of guys typically, and as long as you show up and are ready to work, you're there on time, and you're there to learn something. Yeah, they're going to give you a hard time. That's what they do. That's kind of the ribbing that you're in. That's that's your college, that's your fraternity raising or whatever it is they do there. But those guys are there to help you. They want you to succeed. They want you to help them accomplish those jobs. So even though I had that foot in the door, I still had that nervousness. I was nervous going out there, not because I didn't know what I was doing, because I didn't. Nobody really did, but just because of that perception. Once you get in there, you find out that you're going to have those people help you along. The things you're learning in school right now that you maybe thought you never would have ever wanted to know or needed to know in mathematics and algebra and geometry, it's the same in the real world as it is on paper. If you can figure out how to make a right angle using a compass and some rulers, you can make a right angle in the real world in the middle of nowhere. You can show up on a raw site, a yard that might be behind me, and a building is supposed to go in this exact location for this exact reason. And because of the things you learn, you can place it there. You can put it exactly the way it was intended, designed, and those things you learn on paper translate into the real world in construction, and you will use math daily if this is something you'd like to get into. And if you have a good understanding of mathematics, it doesn't have to be conceptual math. It's just real general math. You can do anything out in the field that you would like to do, and then it's just what you enjoy. You might want to go towards one trade. You might want to try to learn a few different trades. I mean, that's going to be kind of up to you. Ray, what do you think on that? I mean, I've done a little bit of everything through my career, and I feel fortunate about that. But I also know a lot of people in the trades who have specialized on something, and they've done really well for themselves doing that too. So, Ray, you're on mute.
Ray, I think you're muted there. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
That's
How's
okay.
that?
Better.
All right. What I was going to say is, if there's something that you want to do, if you're in high school right now and you're interested in getting a job in the construction trades, the first thing you can learn how to do on your own is learn how to read a tape measure, because you're going to use it. You're going to have one on your hip all the time. I'm going to go through a little bit of a story about how I got into construction. When I was, 9th, 10th grade, had no idea what I wanted to be. My parents, my teachers were all telling me, you have to decide what you're going to do with your life. You're going to be graduating high school. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I only knew one thing. I knew I wanted a car. That's what I knew. That was my whole world. I need a car. Well, in order to get a car, I got to get a job. In order to get a job, I have to be able to tell somebody when I can work, because I can't just, somebody says, well, hey, I can use help on my landscaping crew. When can you work? I can't, the answer is not, well, on Thursday, I could do like an hour. That's not what they want to hear. So if you're graduating high school, you've got it pretty easy because you're going to have all your time off from there. But if you're in 9th, 10th, 11th grade, try to set your classes up as early in the morning as you can, because if you can get out of school at noon or 1 o'clock, then you can tell an employer that I can work from 2 to 5 or 2 to 6, and I can work on these days. When I was in high school, I was part of the construction trades, so I didn't have to go to my construction trades class because I went to work on a house. And I was also in football, so I didn't have to go to PE. So my junior and senior year, I went to school from 7 in the morning to 11 in the morning. And then I went to a job site and worked from about 12 to 4 o'clock every day. And then I had to be back at football practice at 5. And working that job, I was able to get a loan for a car, and it was a junker. It barely ran. The battery didn't charge, so I had to take the battery charger out and charge the battery every night. For like 6 months I did this. But I got the car and I got the job, and I was going out on dates, and none of my buddies had a car. None of my buddies had any money. They were always wanting me to take them to do stuff. And all of that was because I scheduled my classes so that I could tell people when I could work. So start thinking about how you can schedule your classes early so that you can get out early. That means you have to get up early in the morning. That's exactly right. People who get up in the morning are successful. People who sleep all day aren't. That's just the rule. I don't make them up. I'm just telling you what it is. So my first job ended up being as a plumber's apprentice, because I was asking my dad and my neighbors and my parents' friends and my friends' parents, I'm looking for a job. What can I do? And my uncle heard about it, asked, when I was available, and I had the hours, my afternoons open, so he hired me. And the nice thing about that was, for the 2 years, working off and on, I was able to get the money for a car, to go on dates, and kind of enjoy my high school days. But the day I graduated high school, I already had a full-time job. And I was able to do that. I noticed that some of my construction buddies that I was working with, they would buy houses and fix them up and then resell them. It's called flipping. We've all seen the TV shows. So I did a couple of those, and that was going pretty good. I was doing plumbing, and I was doing that on the side. I had quite a few houses, so I was paying a real estate agent to sell my houses, and they are really expensive. So I got my real estate license so that I could sell my own houses. And as time went on, the real estate market kind of went to heck, and nobody was buying houses. I was starting to struggle a little bit. And from getting my real estate licensed, I learned about zoning and planning that cities do to determine how their city is going to grow. And using that knowledge, I was able to get a job as a zoning person for Rock Island County, right over in Illinois. I found out that I hate zoning and I hate planning. I hated it a lot. And so I started taking the courses to better my knowledge of construction law. The great thing is my employer paid for my classes, and then every time I got a couple more certifications, they would give me a raise because I was more knowledgeable. So think about that. You get into a construction trade, you get into a municipality or a company that will either pay for or help pay for some of your classes. And then when you take the classes, they pay you even more. It's awesome. So now I'm a master code professional. I was able to take over the office of Rock Island County when that director left. I went to Cedar Rapids and was the assistant building official up there. I had 30 inspectors working for me. That was 70 hours a day, with basically people yelling at me for stuff that they didn't like. My wife and I came back to the Quad Cities, and now I'm in the city of Eldrige. We are growing like crazy. I've had 30 houses this year, multiple commercial projects. I'm reviewing large commercial projects now, and I work 7 to 3:30, no evenings, no weekends. I have my insurance paid for. I get great vacation time off. I love this job. And you may not become a building official. You may become something that you don't even know exists today. But I think it's important that you set your classes up as soon as you can so that you can get up early, get your classes over with, and then do something. If you've got a friend's dad who needs help on a landscaping crew, go do it. You're going to learn all kinds of stuff. If you got a opportunity to work at a pizza place, go do it. You're going to learn all kinds of stuff. And you're going to learn stuff that you don't even know. And 2 years later, somebody's going to say, man, I wish I knew somebody who knew how to do this. And you're going to go, hey, wait a minute, I know how to do that. You just got a raise. You don't even know you got a raise yet, but you just started that process of getting a raise. So getting into construction has been phenomenal for me. Highly recommended if you don't plan to go to college. That's a little bit of my personal spiel on how I went from high school, not even knowing what a building official is, to being a building official and being very involved in construction all around. So, Joe, I kind of went on a rant, brother.
I think everybody's path might be a little bit different. I'll just give you my career path real quick. Like I said, I had a family in the business, so I started that early. We traveled building cell phone towers. It was a cell phone tower site company, we started doing the fences around them. Then we started doing the foundations for them. Then we started stacking the towers, and it's gone from that to today. Family business still goes. I don't participate much, but they take towers down, they upgrade them for 5G. They build cell phone towers on tops of mountains. They do them down in valleys in the desert. They travel all over the country doing it. And I did that for 7 or 8 years traveling, and the traveling was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing it, but it was time to come home and be with the family and not do that. So that's kind of where I got out of that. But in that job, I learned how to drive a semi truck and trailer. I still had my CDL today, so I could get in any truck that you see out there and drive it and be comfortable doing that. I learned how to operate equipment, bulldozers, big excavators, skid loaders, all those things that you see on construction sites. Learned how to pour concrete and do a lot of heavy construction that way. From there, I started building houses. I got into being a carpenter, which is always what I had always kind of wanted to do. I watched This Old House as a kid, and New Yankee Workshop, and all those public television TV shows that most people kind of skip over. I, for whatever reason, loved them, you know. And then Bob Ross would come on in between, and I'd sit there and watch that too, just because. But became a carpenter, worked for myself for 7 or 8 years, enjoyed that as well. Learned a lot of things, got to make my own schedule, got to work with a lot of different people, do types of jobs that I wanted to do. Bought a lot of tools, you know, which was always cool because it's kind of a hobby, more or less, and then kind of could use it to make money. Still use those tools to make money today if I want to on the side. But ultimately, coming to work for the municipality was a complete change. It was a complete 180. I don't work for profit. I don't care whether the City of Moline Building Department makes money annually or not. My job is to work with the public, work with contractors to ensure construction projects move forward safely. It's a different way of looking at your job and the end goals within your job. And I find it very rewarding to be a public service and a public servant. And I don't have to worry about the profit at the end of the year. It's great to have that profit. You can make more money in the private sector working for yourself and being very motivated to do that. But you can make a very good living working for somebody doing a different aspect of construction. And all those aspects have to come together and work together. And I have found that portion of it to be fantastic. At the same time, if I got tired of this job tomorrow, or this job just wasn't here tomorrow, I could go anywhere in the country, probably the world, and get a job doing something just because of the skill set I've built over a career of 25 years. I don't think that there's anywhere that I could go that I couldn't talk to somebody or find somewhere to go in and get a job. Now that's been built up, but if you're willing to go to work, to ask the question, to show up every day, and be motivated to learn something when you show up, because there's a lot to learn. I learn something every day in my field. I learn something every day in other fields as well. If you're willing to do that, you can do anything you want to in the construction field. You don't need to know in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade what you're going to do. I don't know who does know that. I know I didn't, but because you're here listening to us today, you're open to the concept of construction. Construction is one of those rare fields that you get paid to learn the trade. You get paid on the site while you learn to learn it. Now, the more schooling you have, it may open up different avenues of opportunity, whether you want to work in the design side of it, which is behind a computer, drawing and designing things, or if you want to be out in the field more, or if you want to be a manager of those people out in the field. You know, a lot of those things kind of tie together. And a lot of them have different ways of getting there. But if you're willing to show up every day, do your part to be a project and a problem solver, not a problem creator, you're gonna go as far as you can in the construction work. Because it doesn't matter what job it is, how big or small. It's on paper, it looks great. It always differs a little bit. There's always going to be some changes that have to be made. And if you're willing to help solve those problems and solve those changes, you're going to go as far as you want. I came from East Moline to manage the inspectors here. Since I've been here, I now manage our engineering department temporarily. Hopefully that doesn't continue forever. I like building vertically as opposed to pouring concrete, but I work with our design engineers, and we've worked with traffic patterns on the new I-74, since all that's been going on. I've gotten a chance to be a part of those conversations, and not because that's my expertise or that's what I know, but because I look at it from a different aspect, and there's a problem, so let's come up with solutions to it. And if we can all work towards those solutions, and in the construction field, it's all about making repairs and making solutions, you're going to be great. One of the things that stuck with me about trim carpentry is my it's my hobby. That's what I enjoy doing. So cabinet making and making things look nice. I mess up all the time. It's how I fix those mistakes and how they look at the end is really ultimately what everybody sees and what they notice. And they don't see those mistakes because they are there. They're going to be there, but we solve those mistakes. We are problem solvers. Construction is changing. It's always changing. It's always moving. And I can't speak enough about the trades in general. That man, they're great. They can be really good for you, but you gotta be motivated. You gotta have that mentality and that philosophy going into it. And if you do, like Julie said, if you're looking for a job, somebody's looking for you. I guarantee it. We need people that are willing to do it every day and willing to help with those problems. If you're willing to do that, if Julie can't find you a job, give me a call. I can find a job for you. I talk to people all the time. That's our biggest challenge is getting good young people to come in that want to do what we do. And really, there are days that's hard. There are days that are hard physically, mentally. But if you don't go home at the end of the day and a little bit tired, you put a couple $100 in your pocket. That's okay. Those are good days. So,
yeah, Joe, I think a couple of things that you touched on that are really important is when you're talking about problem solving. Generally speaking, if you want to make a lot of money in life, figure out how to solve other people's problems. That's it. That's key. Doesn't really matter what you're doing. If you're solving somebody else's problem, you probably can make money at it. In construction, we've got this problem where we've got a bare piece of ground. It's just a yard. And we've got this big pile of building materials sitting next to it. And we've got to turn that big pile into a really nice house because there are people who are selling their house now that need to move into that house that's not built yet. That's a problem. So the contractor's looking for people to help solve that problem. Now, one of the things that Joe also talked about was when you're on a job site, paying attention. I call it being engaged. If you're on the job site and you're looking at your phone and somebody says, hey, grab that piece of material, and you go, oh, and you walk over and, okay, you're not engaged. You're not paying attention. We need you to put your phone down and understand why this piece of material is going there. Understand how things are coming together. The example I use is, for instance, in this wall right behind me. It's just a big blank wall. And it's the same with this wall as it is with your wall at home. Every 4 feet, probably one here and one over here, every 4 feet, there's a seam in that wall where they put up the drywall. The reason you can't see it is because they take some material that's kind of like, we call it mud, and you just rub it in there. So if somebody says, hey, pick up that tub of mud. What's mud? That plaster. Okay, it's plaster. Mud is plaster. So you pick it up, and a tub of plaster weighs 80 pounds. And so you go to pick it up and you're like, holy cow, this thing's heavy. Why is it so heavy? And they tell you to take the lid off. You can't get the lid off this stuff. It's crazy. It's like it's made to not be opened. But you wrestle the lid off of it, and then the person who's working will take this, it's a handle with a big flat piece of steel here. and he'll scoop it up and start spreading it on the wall. Well, let's say you help him do that for a couple of days and then he's late. So you grab that thing and you start spreading that stuff on the wall. See, now you're solving his problem. Now you're going to make a lot of money because he's going to come back and you've already got a good start on it. And he's going to go, oh, if I don't pay this kid some money, then somebody else is going to realize he knows how to plaster and I'm going to lose him to somebody else. And I trained him. So being engaged when you're on a job site is one of the most important things you can do. Understand why you're doing everything. Pay attention to what you're doing, but pay attention to what other people are doing and start trying to figure out how that all works together. I get calls, and I'm sure Joe gets calls, where a plumber puts in a pipe and the heating and air conditioning person has to put a line through that same area. And they want to know, what do we do? And I can only help so far. Basically, what Joe and I can do is we can go out and say, look, you can do anything under the sun, but you can't do this. This has got to stay where it is. This has to stay where it is. And then we try to work together and talk it out and figure out a way, the three of us, the plumber and the heating person, to make this all work within the house. And that happens more than you think. So that's my little spiel on, if you're in high school, get up early, show up on time, and really start now. Show up on time for everything. If you tell your mom you're going to be home at 6, be there at 10 to 6. All right. If you tell your friend that you're going to be there at, hey, I'll shoot over at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Okay. Be there at 5 to 8. Okay. 8 o'clock in construction world is not 8:15. You don't want to make your problems somebody else's problems, because that does not pay very well. That pays horribly.
So Ray and Joe, oh, sorry, Ray.
Nope, go ahead. Go ahead, Julie.
We just want to make sure we have time to get to the questions that the students have. Mm-hmm. So again, students, feel free to put your questions in the chat if any have come up while listening to the discussion. But some of you have sent some ahead of time, so we'll go ahead and ask those. What do you enjoy most about your work that you find most rewarding? And then what are some of the biggest challenges you face?
For me, the most rewarding is going through a set of plans, looking at large construction projects and helping to figure out how everything goes together. I've got a big project right now where doing my review, they don't have enough drinking fountains. They don't have a drinking fountain for a handicapped person in a specific area that it's required. Finding these things now so that we don't have to retrofit them later when they would be very, very expensive to change. It's like a big puzzle, and it's fun. One of the most frustrating things that can happen is you go through a set of plans and there's something that we don't catch. And as time goes on, now we figure out, oh, wait, we have to do this. And the first thing a contractor says, well, why didn't you tell me that? Well, because I'm not designing your project. I'm trying to help you make sure that everything gets covered for the customer. But ultimately, the person doing the work is responsible for doing it right. I try to be as helpful as I can, but it's really frustrating when somebody has to do something that they weren't planning on because they didn't know construction law and they're yelling at me about it. It doesn't happen often, but once in a while it does. Joe, how about you?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is getting engaged with everybody. As inspectors, as working for the government, there's that the hands off. They might try to get away with something or not be completely honest, and that's a challenge because we in the past maybe haven't done a great job of being a partner in the construction portion of it. I'm a younger inspector, and so I've been in the field, so I understand that a little bit. But there's been generations of older inspectors who was my way or no way, whether it made sense or not, or whether it was right or not. And so we built up this wall over years and years, and tearing that wall down is definitely the biggest challenge. We want to be a solution and a problem solver for your job. We want to identify cost savings. We want to avoid costly mistakes. We want to make sure that the job is done on time and on budget. So building that relationship with builders, owners, property owners, people trying to put a roof on or whatever on the weekends. I understand and I get it, but that's definitely my biggest challenge is building our credibility so that we become a valuable piece and an important piece, and we not only that we understand that, but everybody else understands it as well.
So you kind of talked about the physical component of what is involved, but are you working in different elements? Here in the Midwest, we've got all the different seasons. So are you mainly in the office, or kind of talk a little bit more about kind of the conditions you work in?
Yeah, we're not out in it all day, but you still want to have a hat, a jacket, some boots, and be ready to get wet, muddy a little bit, and be prepared to sweat and be cold, but we're not in it the way that the guys in the field are in it. We're in and out of the truck a lot. We're in and out of the office a lot. So we get a little bit of best of both worlds. My first boss told me one of the best things about this job is it's warm in the winter and it's cool in the summer. So it's not like it is in the field for sure.
Yeah. I think one of the things that is very attractive about this job, and I think everybody that's an inspector starts in construction somewhere, but I mentioned I started as a plumber, and I remember we were over in Silvis and we were trying to tap a water main. That's the pipe that goes from the water main to your house so that you get water there. And it was 20 degrees outside. We had dug down into a trench to get down to the water main. 20 degrees, it's snowing. We could not get the tap to thread into the main, and the water is leaking out everywhere. And it was so cold, and the water got deep enough that it went over the top of my boots down into it was just so cold. It was the most frustrating day, and the water kept coming up, and we finally got it when the water was about knee deep. And as an inspector now, if I go out to do a cover inspection on a house and it's 10 below zero, well, not only can I dress for it, but I don't have to be there for 8 or 10 hours. I can roll through a good cover inspection in about an hour and a half, and then I get to go back where it's warm again. And I'm still working, but I'm not in the cold. And the same thing in the summertime. A house that is only partially finished and I'm doing a cover inspection on it, if it's 100 degrees outside and the sun's shining, it might be 130, 140 degrees inside the house. But they've got to get going. We've got to continue the project because every day is money spent. So I've got to go in there and get that done. On days like that, I plan those inspections first thing in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to be there because it's going to be hot at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm able to work around the harsh weather conditions that if you're in regular construction, you can't. The other thing is I know people that have injuries from working in construction. It's muddy a lot. It's hard to walk around a construction site that might be muddy, especially when you're carrying very heavy materials. And being an inspector, well, frankly, a lot of people who become inspectors get fat because we don't move enough. So you got to do something else to stay healthy. So,
Are there a lot of, sorry.
Go ahead.
Is there a lot of demand for this career field?
I think there's a lot of demands for knowledge. We use a lot of construction code books. I don't know if you can see me right now, but see, I've got all my construction code books on the wall over here. And being able to find the information you need. You don't have to know everything in the world off the top of your head. It helps. But if somebody is looking for an answer to a question that you haven't been asked in 6 months, you might go, oh man, I can't remember. So you grab a book, throw it open to the chapter, and you find the answer quickly. Being able to use our code books is one of the biggest things. So typically when people are transitioning from a construction job where they may have been like Joe, a carpenter or a plumber or electrician, when they are transitioning to an inspector, they have to learn that the way they've been doing it is one of many ways that it can be done. And the construction code allows all kinds of ways. So just because somebody's doing it in a manner that you didn't do it, doesn't mean it's wrong. The other thing is when we go out as an inspector, if I see something that meets code, but it looks awful, it meets code. I don't have the authority to tell them to fix something that looks awful if it meets code. Now, I might call them over and say, man, can we talk about this a second? Because I kind of think it meets code, but is there any way that we might be able to do something different here? Because this just looks awful.
So
I
it looks
try
like
not to do that too much, but it does happen from time to time.
So it looks like we have a question from the chat. Are more of the code books going online, or do you find more online resources than in the past?
Yeah.
Joe, you want to take that one, or?
Yep. Code books are, yeah, they do have options to buy them online. I mean, they still sell the subscriptions to them that way. And definitely more resources online than in the past. You know, YouTube and Google and all those things have completely changed your ability to find how to do something, how to go about, how to lay things out. Like I said, as a carpenter, building stairs is a challenge for a lot of people, and there's a lot of math involved with it. There really is. You know, you guys should understand your rise over run equals your slope or your angle. There's a lot of things that go into building a set of stairs, and if we go out and look at a set of stairs that's just obviously wrong, Google it, YouTube it. You know, there are options on how to figure out how to do it. It does help a lot, much more so than in the past when we were early on in our careers, where you had to have a book in your truck or go buy one or something like that. But code books are available online. A lot of research online, a lot of forums, a lot of discussions online nowadays with code books and just any kind of construction related knowledge.
Something about math too that is just sort of interesting. I know people that I went to high school with who were not good in math in class because it was just math. There was nothing that it related to. As soon as they got a job in construction and learned to read a tape measure, suddenly fractions made sense and they were good at them because they were using them. When you were talking about slope and rise and run, you know, I know guys that algebra, geometry, they just couldn't grasp it because it wasn't interesting to them. As soon as you get them on a construction site and they're trying to figure out how high the spacer has to be because this pipe has to have 1/4 of an inch every 10 feet of slope, they're fine. Learning math in school for the people that I'm talking about was very abstract, so they weren't good at math. But as soon as they get on a construction site, it's not abstract anymore. Now it's real and they can see it and they understand why it has to be that way. And suddenly the math just clicked for them. So even if you don't like math, don't let that dissuade you from being in construction, because in construction, you're not focusing on math for math. You're going to build a set of steps. Steps are cool to build, especially if you get it figured out with your rise and run and you just start going down with your speed square. I'm telling you, the first time you do that, it's a pretty good feeling. So yeah,
I think we have time for any students that want to put in their questions in the chat. Now would be a great time to do that. Want to make sure we're answering any additional student questions that we have as we're kind of in the last few minutes here. So feel free to put those in the chat, students. And then just a question here while we're waiting for any additional ones to come in is, Joe and Ray, can you talk maybe a little bit about what the process is? So how do you know when it's time for the building to do an inspection? Is it the builder that contacts you? Is it the subs that, okay, I'm this far in the project, I need to come take a look? How does that look?
Yeah, usually we get a phone call from the people doing construction. Most contractors know when they need an inspection. For new contractors or homeowners, we will talk to them at the beginning of the process and help them understand it. When they get a permit, they also get a sheet that helps tell them when they need inspections and what needs inspected on their project. I've had 30 house permits this year. when I do a set of plans for a new house, I go through it and I make a sheet that talks about 40 to 45 different things for that specific house that says, for instance, if you're going to put a window next to the bathtub, that window has to be tempered glass. If you're going to have a set of steps going out the back door, there can only be, well, in Eldrdige, it can be 3 steps before you have to have a landing. In a lot of jurisdictions, it's only 2. There are things like that that the contractor wants to know because they're more than happy to do it right the first time. But if they don't know and they do it wrong, now they've got to waste a day, waste of time, and waste the cost of materials. So that's just crazy. That's just crazy. They don't like doing that. They get mad at me when they have to do that. So.
All right, thank you for answering those questions. I didn't see any more come in on the chat. So on the next page, here on the PowerPoint, you'll see just some resources. So to various websites. So please feel free to screenshot, take a picture of those, or click on those so you can refer to those
I'd like to
links
answer
for
that
more
last
information.
question I saw.
Oh, did one come in?
Answer that last question I saw. The question was basically, is there a difference between county and city and state requirements? Generally speaking, every municipality, every state, generally speaking, uses what's called the International Code Series. And these are a series of codes that are used internationally. So, and there are what we call local amendments. So there are ways that a small city could say, you know, the code says this, that really doesn't work here, so we're going to change that. That does happen. But generally speaking, as a master code professional, if I wanted to move to London or Dubai or you know, pick a spot anywhere in the world, if I wanted to go get a job there, my qualifications as a master code professional count very heavily because they're going to be using the same codes.
Great. Well, thank you so much to both Ray and Joe for joining us today. You gave a ton of great information. Also, thank you to the students for your questions that you had as well. So with that, we will wrap up this session and hope you can join us for a future one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.